Do you ever dwell on mistakes you made in the past or missed opportunities and sometimes wish you could travel back in time to choose a different path? I myself wish I could go back to when I was taking a cruise holiday with my wife and stop myself from pushing the captain overboard when I caught him staring at her sunbathing in her bikini, as perhaps then he wouldn't have become so angry that he chose to punish me by marooning me on this very island, and I'd still be married and living at home in our small cottage in Cramlington, instead of stuck out here alone and at sea with no one to talk to except a parrot I've named Kevin. You see, contemplating our past mistakes and potential missed opportunities often leads us to ponder the possibilities of what might have been if we had the power to turn back time. And this very notion lies at the heart of the new DC superhero film, The Flash. The Flash is the alter ego of a young man named Barry Allen, a similar kind of superhero to Spider-Man in that he leads a dual life. One day he's fighting crime, the next day he's working at his regular job as a laboratory assistant, missing deadlines and getting in trouble from his boss. He's also mourning the loss of a deceased family member. In this case, it's Barry's mother. The Flash works within a team of superheroes called the Justice League, comprising of such iconic superheroes as Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. The film begins with Barry working with Batman to prevent a gang of criminals from wreaking havoc in the city of Gotham. But whilst performing his unique ability of traveling at supersonic speeds, Barry finds himself running so fast that he outpaces the speed of light and finds himself a few minutes back in time. Barry becomes so intrigued by the prospect of being able to time travel that he realizes that he may be able to go back in time and stop his mother from being killed. He confides this revelation to Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, whose own childhood tragedy of losing both his parents mirrors Barry's. Bruce, however, warns Barry against going back and altering the past, and emphasizes the importance of learning from one's past experiences, rather than wishing we could change the events which made us into the people who we are today. He also cautions Barry about the potential dire consequences that may accompany such meddling with time. Undeterred, however, Barry believes that if he could go back and make what amounts to an almost insignificant change, such as ensuring his mother has an extra can of tomatoes in her kitchen cupboard, this change could ultimately prevent her untimely demise. Driven by his conviction that such a small change could save his mother and would be insignificant in the larger scheme of things, Barry travels to the past and puts the extra can of tomatoes into his mother's shopping trolley. Now I know what you're all thinking. Haven't we seen stories about the consequences of changing events in the past to alter the future in countless time travel films before? Well, yes, of course we have. And I acknowledge that the concept of time travel and altering the past to affect the future has been extensively explored in countless narratives across science fiction media before. Nevertheless, The Flash adds a unique twist by exploring the repercussions of time travel not only on the future, but on the entirety of time itself. You see, by placing the tin of tomatoes in his mother's shopping trolley, Barry has not only affected the future, but all of time, and finds himself in a parallel universe where past, present, and future have all been changed. By deviating from the conventional narrative of altering the past to only affect the future, the film delves into the creation of parallel universes, revealing the unpredictable nature of tampering with time. This innovative approach, merging time travel with parallel universe storytelling, distinguishes The Flash as an intriguing superhero film. As while superhero, time travel, and parallel universe stories are now well-established narratives, The Flash seamlessly weaves all three elements together to create a unique cinematic experience. After placing the tin of tomatoes in his mother's shopping trolley, Barry attempts to return to the present and finds himself outside his family home, and to his relief, discovers both his parents are there, alive and well. However, he suddenly catches sight of himself, walking up the street and about to enter the house, and he uses his superpowers to quickly take the other Barry aside. You see, it's not the present day Barry has traveled to, but a few years earlier, when Barry was 18 years old. Older Barry then explains to his younger self what has happened. Then, through a series of events, older Barry ends up losing his superhero abilities, whilst younger Barry gains them. And the narrative unfolds whereby older Barry has to guide and train younger Barry to harness his newfound abilities. Over the course of events, the two Barrys end up in search of Batman's help once again. However, due to Barry's meddling with time, this Batman, instead of being played by Ben Affleck, as seen earlier, is now played by Michael Keaton, and who, after being told the situation, explains that Barry has fundamentally altered time. I appreciated that the Flash challenges our perception of time as a simple linear progression of past, present, and future, proposing the coexistence of temporal dimensions and infinite universes, speculating that altering any event in time can have profound effects, leading to divergent realities. While contemplating this intricate notion may sound overwhelming, the film wisely avoids excessive exposition, opting for a simple metaphor where Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne explains the concept using a bowl of cooked spaghetti strands intertwining at random points. Ezra Miller, the lead actor playing the Flash and the two Barrys, delivers an exceptional performance and to my mind was perfectly suited for the role, portraying two distinct versions of the same character. He skillfully portrays the young naive 18-year-old Barry who never lost his parents and lacks the experience of being a superhero, as well as the more mature version of himself, who has undergone and endured excessive trauma after spending much of his life mourning the loss of his mother and the imprisonment of his father. The film's first half, where older Barry loses his powers and trains younger Barry in the art of being a superhero, is undoubtedly the highlight. It is both amusing and captivating, as we witness older Barry grapple with the repercussions of altering time and wondering how he will resolve the situation and overcome it without his superpowers. Meanwhile, watching his younger self now possess the superhuman abilities, but without the maturity and experience to use them responsibly, results in many comedic scenes, such as younger Barry finding himself naked multiple times in public due to his ignorance over the fact that traveling at such speeds will inevitably burn normal clothing fabric to a crisp. Although reminiscent of the Quicksilver character in the X-Men films, I enjoyed the slow-motion sequences showcasing the Flash's movements, his need to consume copious amounts of food due to the energy expanded by his lightning-quick actions, and his ability to pass through walls, shown to us at a zoomed-in and subatomic level, where we see Barry's molecules vibrating through the molecules of the walls he passes through. I also appreciated the portrayal of younger Barry's life being much more vacuous, exemplified by his choice of roommates. Where older Barry lived alone, younger Barry lives amongst characters who mirror his superficial and irresponsible nature. Additionally, the inclusion of Michael Keaton's Batman and seeing the Batcave and the technology reminiscent of the 1989 and 1992 Batman films, including the Batsuit, Batmobile, and gadgets, added a nostalgic element that I believe would excite and please any superhero fan familiar with those earlier adaptations. I would say the first 50 minutes of the film were highly enjoyable. However, during a training scene between the two Barrys in the city park, an abrupt shift occurs, where we see crowds of people suddenly rushing into coffee shops to witness a broadcast where a supervillain appears, threatening to destroy the Earth. This sudden turn becomes the main focus of the film, and although related to Barry's meddling with time, I felt it was somewhat disconnected from the previous narrative we had hitherto been following. It is generally more effective when films maintain a consistent perspective and avoid abruptly shifting to completely new events without prior setup. Spoilers! I also enjoyed the sequence where younger Barry gets shot and becomes helpless, and Michael Keaton's Batman has to take full responsibility to aid them using his resourcefulness and bat gadgets. However, it was at this point, 1 hour and 25 minutes in, that I believe the film really lost its way, with the sudden awakening of an unknown captive girl who unexpectedly turns out to be Supergirl. The film then takes a completely different direction, shifting its focus away from Barry to Supergirl and the invasion of General Zod. I felt that this diversion from Barry's perspective was rather jarring, as I always prefer films to maintain a consistent perspective, as exemplified in films like Back to the Future, where we stay with Marty McFly throughout the entire story. Additionally, the ease with which older Barry regains his powers a few scenes later feels somewhat contrived, as it appears that this plot development was intended solely to set up the third act, so that both versions of the Flash could be featured. However, I believe it would have been more compelling if older Barry had not regained his powers, and continued instructing and training younger Barry to help defeat General Zod. This would have created a stronger character dynamic, with older Barry confronting the loss of his powers and maturing beyond them, whilst younger Barry, lacking trauma and responsibility, grapples with the immense power he now possesses. Such an exploration of their contrasting experiences could have provided a more profound character arc and added depth to their relationship. Although the film attempts to address this to some extent, maintaining the absence of powers for older Barry throughout the third act would have strengthened this theme. Also, the inclusion of Batman as a mentor figure for older Barry could have provided an interesting perspective. Rather than focusing on regaining his powers, Batman could have encouraged older Barry to redevelop his abilities as a non-superpowered hero, much like himself. This could have explored the idea of overcoming challenges without relying on superpowers, and it would have been fascinating to witness older Barry's transformation into a hero who is forced to rely on his intelligence and resourcefulness like Batman. Furthermore, this would have also served to give Batman's character a more compelling arc, as it would have been more impactful if he had served as a father figure for older Barry, guiding him through the challenges of being a superhero without powers. Alternatively, the story might also have been more compelling had younger Barry been killed due to his inexperience with being a superhero, or maybe transformed into an antagonist, perhaps being recruited by General Zod and falling under his mind control due to his immaturity, which could have created a more dramatic and character-driven third act. In any case, the presence of the two Barrys being so strikingly similar in the third act ultimately diminished the impact of their individual character arcs. Moreover, the third act of the film, which heavily borrowed from Man of Steel, felt less original and lacked depth. The large-scale battle with soldiers wielding guns lacked creativity and failed to provide a compelling resolution to the narrative. General Zod, as the main antagonist, lacked sufficient character development and appeared as a typical invincible boss, reminiscent of a video game. The absence of a well-rounded and intriguing villain hindered the overall impact of the story. Also, Supergirl's character felt somewhat detached from the narrative, almost resembling a character from a different film, and lacking enough scenes and dialogue for her to properly establish her point in being included in the film. Also, the inclusion of Batman in the third act also appeared incongruous with the established setting, as I believe Batman is best seen at night in city environments, rather than in broad daylight fighting alien soldiers firing lasers in the desert. By addressing these narrative and character development concerns, the film could have created a more cohesive and engaging experience for the audience, allowing for a more meaningful exploration of themes and relationships. The film also includes many nostalgic moments, such as the CGI recreation of Christopher Reeve's Superman and Nicolas Cage's Superman, which I believe was an overindulgence in fan service. While these moments may have delighted some viewers, they did not contribute significantly to the narrative or any character development. However, after the culmination of the third act's big battle sequence, the film thankfully concludes with a profound and meaningful ending, where Barry realizes that returning to the supermarket and allowing his mother to die is the only way to undo the universe's collision, and was a poignant moment in the film. Barry's emotional farewell and hug with his mother carried a sense of bittersweetness, that will bring a tear to the eye of any viewer who has had to say goodbye to a loved one. Now, this next point may just be nitpicking, but I thought it would have added far more cinematic power and artistic depth if after the hug with his mother, the camera had panned down to reveal Barry secretly holding the can of tomatoes he had taken from her shopping trolley and holding them behind her back. This visual metaphor would have symbolized his act of love for his mother, whilst also conveying his acceptance of finally coming to terms with her death and making the difficult decision he knows he has to make. Perhaps we could have explored the consequences further by showing Barry bringing the can of tomatoes back with him to the present, and perhaps placing it on a shelf in his apartment and using it as a reminder of the complexities of time manipulation and the weight of difficult decisions. I still have a tin of sardines that I haven't opened for that very reason. Well, it's also because I don't have a can opener, but it still serves the same purpose. Ultimately, I would say I enjoyed The Flash, for the most part. However, I will admit that the first half was far stronger than the second, and that the third act was by far its weakest point. I appreciated the film's overall message, that regret and the desire to revisit the past is a sentiment we all recognize, but upon closer examination, one realizes that the lessons learned from past mistakes hold significant value in shaping one's character and facilitating personal growth. In essence, the cost of the mistake often proves worthwhile when considering the wisdom gained, and I felt this was at the very least satisfyingly conveyed in The Flash.